Welcome to the Dealing with Goliath podcast. The mission of Dealing with Goliath is to sharpen the psychological edge in negotiation and high-impact conversations for business leaders with skin in the game who want to be more effective under pressure, uncover hidden value, and increase profitability. With expert guests across the business spectrum, we deliver gems of wisdom, delving into their methods, their thinking and approach to business, life, and to problem solving. This is the Grande Cup of Insight, long-form podcast interview where we take the time to delve a little bit deeper into our guests' experiences, stories, and to get those priceless nuggets. I'm your host, Al McBride, and my guest today is Bill O'Hearn. Bill is a corporate executive, practicing therapist, and writer who seeks to use his 33 years of financial sales management experience, 24 years of marriage, 15 years of counselling clients, and 8,500 hours, that is a hell of a lot, of sitting quietly to help all his clients better understand, change, and deepen their relationships. Bill's research shows that relationships fail for one single core reason: a lack of understanding of one's emotions and reaction patterns created in childhood. He teaches that all your relationships with others, especially your marriage, started in the 4th grade when your limbic-emotional body learned, absorbed, and inherited your parents' lives and experiences. We are all, therefore, married to our own old unconscious emotions more so than to our spouse. An underlying principle of his work is emotion is the key to and driving force underlying every thought and action in human existence. Bill, welcome to the show.
It's a mouthful. Who wrote that?
It is a mouthful, but it's a good introduction to you. There's so much I want to talk to you about. I mean, as we were talking before in our previous conversation before we hit record there today, you know, I love where you're coming from with this. I've listened to a number of your other podcasts, and from our conversations, there's so much gems I want to dig out of your head for the listeners out there. But and it's just such a beautiful parallel, as we talked about, that, you know, my whole thesis is I essentially coach people how to coach themselves and their counterpart to a better outcome in their conversations and in their negotiations. And it's a good bit similar to what you do. But before we get in there, let's go step back, get a bit of a big zoom out for a little minute. And that's fascinating. How does someone who goes from raising capital in London at the time and then later in Connecticut and New York and now in Austin, how does someone who raises capital become a therapist? How does this happen?
Great question. I'm still trying to figure that out, 25 years later. Came out of school, just do what 20-year-olds do and just jump into the business field. Loved it. I loved the challenge. I loved the psychology of the markets. I was a sales trader for 11 years. And then as kind of into my 9th and 10th year, having really nice success on the outside, my outside world, living in London, living the life of Riley, as we used to like to say, there was just something missing inside. And that sounds so corny and so cliche these days, Al. Like, oh, the financial guy, not happy. This is the mid-90s. But and then there was something beckoning. And, we ended up doing a bunch of research on what happens when you get to your 30s. It's called brain alienation, but that's another topic. The punchline is one day I just decided to stop and sit quietly. And I found a lot of stuff inside, a lot of emotions that I didn't know were in there. And so that was the catalyst. I took that as my buddy used to say, the dog gets the bone in the mouth. I took I just kept following that thread. And so I ended up quitting, and I just started reading and meditating and doing therapy and realizing there's this incredible kingdom. There's this amazing world inside of us that a lot of it we've absorbed. The name of my book originally was going to be called The Space in Between, because we absorbed this world from 0 to 12 years old of our parents. And it's bioelectric, it's biomagnetic. We actually absorb. And so I left the financial field, to get this hiatus, go back to get a master's run a juvenile justice program in Stamford, Connecticut, up until late '05, beginning of '06. And then in '07, I got my license. Ironically, I get my license to be able to counsel, take insurance. I went back to Wall Street. I started commuting back to Midtown to go back into the sales world, raising capital. And what was interesting is that every single ounce of energy I put into trying to know myself better and trying to help other people know themselves better was absolutely 100% applicable to my daily job. So, and I still cold call. So I'm cold calling people,
yeah.
and I'm watching how I react, and I'm watching how they react, and I'm moving and bobbing and weaving. I'm cold calling people. I get the secretary, and I can sense right away that they're not interested in talking. And I just drop one question in, oh, how's your day going? And suddenly they get talkative. And my modus is to build a relationship to get to her boss.
Right.
So I use what I've been exploring on the inside for the last 26 years. Every single day in my job, it is 100% applicable. The more I know about me, the more I'm going to be able to understand what you're going through, Al, just on a quick conversation. It's amazing. And we've been able to teach that to my colleagues, of just to watch themselves. I would listen to their phone calls,
right,
and I wouldn't judge or criticize, and they would want to jump into the product. And you and I know.
So they're all business. They're getting to the
product.
They
want, because they were so thirsty and desirous to do well and be successful. I kept saying, nobody really wants to jump into the product, John, my colleague, my employee, until they kind of know you. He's like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense. Like, they just want to know I'm like, no. Just try it. Just try this. Say something that's not business related. Oh, you're in Miami? I love the Dolphins. Oh, I don't like the Dolphins. Just something to see what the other side, like you work in negotiations, right? You're trying to understand what the emotional state of that person is. And then you're managing that conversation. You either drop it, move right on. Hey, is your boss there? And you just go for the hook, or you'll keep working. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten meetings with smart financial guys that I want to be clients, prospects, that no one else could get meetings from, because I was consciously building a relationship with his gatekeeper. And I was getting meetings, not even talking to Mr. Smith, the boss man. And so knowing self, as you and I were talking before we hit play, is the whole game. It really is. And it never ends. The knowledge, who you are at your age in your 30s, is completely different than who you are in your 40s. And if we're not following that thread of our watching and taking stock and being aware, as the Hindus say, the whole goal of life is to expire wide awake. Wide awake. You've processed everything. You've gotten everything of the inside world, everything in the non-physical world in you, Al, out into the physical world. That is the process. That's the creative process of being human. And so if that's the creative process of being human, I'll be damned if I won't continue to try to figure out, who am I in every moment? Who am I in every interaction? Who am I with my interaction with my wife, with my kids? And then taking that information, good or bad, nasty, crying, laughing, and figuring out what to do with it and putting it out into the outside world. Sorry, that was a long diatribe.
Not at all. It's phenomenal stuff. Particularly interested in that idea of taking that space, because there's often this idea that you go slow to go faster, which, as like your colleague would say, it sounds counterintuitive. I mean, it's a business call, and we're about business, and if they want to buy the thing, it's because the merits of the thing, and yet it's not. I mean, they want to know, like, can I trust you? Interesting. You remind me weirdly of a conversation I had in Japan. I was with a few friends in Tokyo, and we went touring around Japan. Amazing place. But we got chatting to this chap in a bar, and he was kind of this quite, senior executive guy, and we were having drinks and chatting away. Fascinating fellow. But he said one thing. He said, the reason we all go, when people visit us here in Japan, or we visit them to do some big corporate deals, the reason we all go drinking heavily is so that you can only hold the mask so long, right? So that when you're quite drunk, the idea is you get a sense of what this person really is. And he says, so it means that if I need to call you in London or in Texas, that you go, it's Hero, I'm gonna answer the phone. because I
It's
know
amazing.
him. So it's not just business. It's about removing, which is fascinating from a society, that's all about having all of these social ways of doing things and saying things, 18 ways of saying yes that don't mean yes and no that don't mean no, and all this sort of
Yeah.
layers of
Yeah.
subtleties. That's
It,
what it's all about, is that
it,
I know that you will actually, you're a decent enough guy. That was the whole point. So it's that same idea of this emotional connection of, do I know, like, and trust you? It's the classic marketing thing that we buy from people who we know, like, and trust.
exactly. And there's an art there. Listening is the way to expound on what you just said, because if I ask you questions and I'm trying to develop, but I'm not listening to what you're saying, and if I'm just waiting to ask that next question, it's kind of stilted and it's not fluid. And so really the art is asking questions is the only way. Vulnerability is the only way to build a relationship. Relationships get built. You and I have a relationship. We talk, we chat, right? We keep talking and chatting. And then I share something kind of that, that softens me up. Like, oh yeah, last week I cried and like, so then you either meet me down there in that vulnerable spot or you don't.
Right.
And in business negotiations, of course, it's not that vulnerability, but there is a sense of vulnerability where I could tell you so many times where I could tell a conversation really wasn't going anywhere. And I would just out of nowhere share something. Oh yeah, that happened. And suddenly that person knew that I was kind of opening up my chest a little bit to be human. And so there's a power, but you have to be confident and you have to know your own inner landscape, be willing to be vulnerable. And so again, it all comes back to, the only way I can develop a relationship with you is I have to be comfortable in my own skin to say, oh yeah, I meditate a lot. And half the time I meditate, I get these tears in my eyes and stuff like that and blah, blah, blah. Whether it's important or not, I'm exposing who I am. And even in the business world, we expose a little bit who we are. You're going to find the human element and you're going to develop a relationship that you wouldn't otherwise do if you're not have that conviction and confidence in your own ability to share your emotions. And
Absolutely.
that comes down to knowing yourself.
Right.
And
what I would say is, think of it as strength through vulnerability, because an awful lot of people are too okay. Some might just be out of the habit, so they might have the ability, but they just don't do it. But a lot of part of that then is also, I suppose, that they literally fear being vulnerable. They fear that exposure. Whereas when someone can actually even start to, just as you say, you drop in something, not a huge, not overshare, which can be equally detrimental.
yes.
But, as you said, a little bit of, you bring the humane, you're bringing genuine human empathy there.
Yeah.
And
I just got goosebumps when you say that. Yeah. And it's funny with women talking to the business folks in the business world, females. I'll often say, yeah, most men were actually retarded because it takes us. It's hard for us to grow up. We don't understand. We end up being mama's boys, but we mask that with this insecurity and go out and make a lot of money. And so when I say men are basically retarded, it softens the whole thing. And my wife's like, you got to stop using those words. And I got 3 daughters. Like, Dad, you can't use that word retarded. But I'm like, there's something funny and honest and true that, us men, we're smart, we've got good EQ, but we're a little bit boys. Like every man is a walking around 15-year-old, trying to figure out their life. I don't care if they've got $1 billion. Or
8-year-old. Yeah,
or 8. Yeah.
Depending
Developmentally,
on the day.
Exactly. Developmentally, if a guy can get beyond 20 years old, heroics to him, because I'm still like stuck at 17. But yeah, that vulnerability, I call it vitamin V. It's the only way I believe to build relationships. Now, how important are relationships? Harvard did that 80-year longitudinal study, right? The Grant study. And they studied the class of 41, 42, and 43 out of Harvard, that graduating class, men, I think it was like 80 men, and they studied them their entire lives, and they're now studying their grandkids. What was the single sentence that's on my website that the Grant study came up with? I'll tell you. The most important thing in people's lives is relationships. It dictates the economics, it dictates their health. It's relating with other people. As mammals, we're built to relate. And if we're not working on self, because that's the first relationship we have to understand is what's Al's relationship to Al.
Yes.
Right? Because at any moment, it could be the 10-year-old Al, it could be the 15-year-old Al. in whatever mood you're in and whatever someone else is setting you off in. The insecure Al, the powerful Al, all those things, because you are all those things.
Sure.
And so if I don't know which Bill's coming out right now, then I'm just a train wreck. And I can be a train wreck without, and so the point is knowing self. As Harvard said, relationships the most important thing, but it's got to start with self.
It does. It's a fascinating one. I happen to be listening to the audio book of Rapport, which was all about exactly this and the principles of, and you mentioned the health. I mean, levels of social connection were a better indicator than diet and even smoking for how long your life is and how likely you are to have, say, heart disease and strokes. So like it's that level, and again, purpose at work, that's the other thought it sparks, is that you need literally, happiness at work. You need sense of potential, or you need a sense of purpose, you need a sense of connection, a sense of autonomy. But that sense of connection is key. I mean, that's why humans, we weren't the strongest people at all. It was the fact that we could work together better, not only use tools skillfully, but work together better and give that information to the rest of the tribe and to the younger generations without them having to learn everything afresh. That's why we are so dominant as a species, for better or worse.
Yeah.
It's literally the secret of our success is the ability to connect.
Correct. And then so I took that exactly what you said, that relationships are super important. And I'd read that a while ago. And then I said, well, what's the best arena to work on relationship? It's the arena that causes the most friction. Because the second law of thermodynamics says that two bodies in space will continue to be friction-based, and then they'll balance out. So where is the fire in our lives? The fire's in our relationships. And the biggest fire is in our primary relationships, which is our spouse, but it's also our parents and our siblings. So what happens is we retreat from that intensity, but it's in that intensity that it wakes up all the parts of me. In other words, I could go meditate and I could go on the mountaintop and spend years meditating, getting all these insights. This is great. I understand self. And then as the Buddha says, you got to take these insights to the marketplace, get off the pillow, get off the cushion, go to the marketplace. And it's in the marketplace where all the friction is.
Right.
And so that's the basis of all the work that we've been doing for the last 15 years is your relationship is going to constantly kick up in you. Your relationship with your spouse especially is going to kick up all that insecurity, all that fear, all that anger that would otherwise be laying fallow. It's in there, right? So think about it. I've been married for 24 years. I can guarantee you at some point today, I point out there in the ether where my wife is, she's going to kick up frustration in me, anger, she doesn't understand all this stuff. And that's just a Thursday afternoon, right? And we've been at it for 24 years. The point is, face the friction, go into the friction, because that's where the intensity is. And most men, this is their
back. Yeah.
I relate when I'm comfortable. Okay, great. That's what are you actually getting when you're comfortable? You're not peeling away the layers. So that's really been stand in the fire has been the message.
It's the David Bowie tune, Changes, turn and face the strange. It's uncomfortable. That's why you turn and step into
sucks.
it,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you remind me of that. There's a new book, Adam Grant, and he was talking about this with the opposite of conflict isn't harmony, it's apathy. And I love the way he said it.
Love that. So
and that's
true.
the problem. When you don't engage time and again, you're not getting to harmony. You're getting to that apathetic state where then the other person in that dynamic, whether it's a business partner, whether it's a relationship partner, whether it's a child, parent, or whatever, or sibling, friendship, you name it, they just go, I hear, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the apathy creates this wall where you get angry as soon as somebody starts poking. And that's why, the word relationship is a verb. It comes from Latin, relatus, right? That's been a big thing. So relatus means to carry back, right? Look it up. And so I took that when I was really like, I've got to understand this thing called relationship. And I wanted to get to the root of it. And I found the Latin root of it. It means that you and I are in a relationship and we can have a great time. It'll always be a good, but you're going to kick up something in me. Sooner or later, you're going to kick up something. And so what I do is I take what you kicked up in me and I carry it. I take it to my therapy, to my meditation, to my run, whatever I'm going to do. And I cathartic with it, and I open up to it, and like, oh, Al just kicked up this sense of blah, 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 blah. And what do? I carry this insight back to you. I go, when you did that, Al, I just want to let you know, when you did that. And so you're like, oh, really? I can't believe I did that. Oh my God. And so something's happened in our relationship. It's shifting, it's moving. There's actually electrons in the space in between you and I, and it shifts. So relationship is a verb. It never ends. We're always relating. We're always carrying stuff back. And if we're not carrying back, there's the apathy. We don't want to pick up the pail of self and carry it to you, to the space. Then we're not going to finish life off. My desire is to finish this whole thing, finish this life, get everything out. Like I'm just not.
Always evolving, always.
Yeah, you got to finish strong. Yeah. Die wide awake.
On that note, it's probably a good time to tell us the story and the implications of your wife throwing a plate at your head many years ago.
I can hear the angels singing right now. It was a classic. That
seemed to be the sparking moment of a whole different trajectory.
I liken it to, I read a bunch of Einstein's work in, oh my God, the guy that wrote The Green Dragon. Anyway, he talks about, when they started splitting atoms and they realized that everything is one and everything's connected, the rational mind couldn't fathom the allness, the crazy, uniting forces of the universe. So we'd only known each other for about less than 3 years. So, we were in our early, I was 32, she was 35 when we got married, we had a kid, moved back to the suburbs. And so there was we had created this brand new suburban world. We had left the urban world, and she got so angry at me because I was upbraiding the kids. I think we had 2 at the time, or 1 and 1 on the way. And I was being a little bit just too demonstrative, or too like sit up straight, and she's like, she got so pissed. She stood up, I stood up, and she took a plate and she whipped it at my head. And thank God I ducked. But in that moment, I realized, Al, that was her 10-year-old or 15-year-old that was really, really upset. But the insight was that anger towards me, she didn't know me long enough to have built up that much of a callus of anger towards me. In other words, you could get angry. You could get angry at me right now for something if I just said something, but that anger could only be if you get so angry, like 2 standard deviations angry, that it's something inside of you that I just triggered. And I knew in that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she got that angry. There's this world inside of her that's blowing up. And now that's the exit point. And so what we did 2 weeks later, we went to therapy. I dragged her into therapy. And she's sitting there and she starts talking about the event. Yeah, Bill's a jerk. And she went into this kind of quiet, almost hypnotic on the couch. And I'm looking at the therapist going, where are we going here? And she's like, oh gosh, he's such a jerk. He's such an asshole. I can't believe he made me ride horses when I was that years old. And we're like, what? Her dad used to come to the table, a little bit inebriated, never hurt her or anything, but was just mean and callous. And basically that was the aha moment when she realized, oh my God, Bill, you represent my dad. You kicked up my dad response patterns. Yeah. And right there in that moment, Al, I swear to God, I'm like, I am following this trail and I will not give up. And I realized our childhood world creates these patterns. And and we create them when we're young, and then they get stored in our 20s and 30s. And then brain millenniation happens and the left and right brain start to merge in our 30s. And suddenly these things that were stored in our limbic brain start to pop up. And we're like, where the hell is that from? Who is that? I started saying things that my dad would say when I was in my mid-30s with 2 kids. I'm like, who said that? Oh, that was me.
Where did that come from?
Yeah. So there's this unconscious world of emotions that gets kicked up. And in that moment when the plate was at my head and I ducked, I realized, okay, there's something much bigger going on here.
Big time. As you were saying, the one's marriage is one of the obviously the most key relationships in particularly in the day-to-day importance of your life for years on end. But let's bring that then for a moment and parallel it into the office.
100%.
Because often, when certain people don't get along, you're like, how did that happen? And as you said, those parallel patterns of they're not talking to that person they're talking to, their mother, or they're talking
100%.
to their father, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So my book is called Waking Up Marriage, but it has nothing to do with marriage. It's really about what I just described was the plate at the head, but my old boss kicked up the same thing. My colleagues, it has nothing. Marriage is just a great big template to use, but every single relationship you're in, my relationship with my neighbor, my relationship with my two biggest clients, all those interactions are going to kick up parts of me that if I'm not aware of, I do dumb things and silly things. We do dumb and silly things because of those emotions that come up, and it's all about awareness. That's the only thing I can do is watch. Oh, my old boss is like, oh, there it is. There's Bill, the 15-year-old, looking for something, looking for dad to recognize me, whatever that might be. So marriage is the most obvious template, but it has nothing to do with the marriage itself. It has to do with the intensity of marriage because we're in four walls 24/7.
Right.
But at work, it's
with COVID now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But like, just look at every relationship. You can literally list every single relationship. Mom, biggest client, worst clients. Everybody's kicking up something in Bill. Everybody's got their thing, and it's going to fire something up in me. And if I'm not understanding the stream of stuff moving through me, I'm not that effective, and I can't help them. Mm-hmm. As a I don't know, 250 new clients we brought in over the last 15 months in our private equity fund. I have a relationship with. It sounds crazy. I have a relationship with 3/4 of those people that I could pick up the phone and understand kind of where they're at, just because I take it as the challenge of knowing where they're at, what they need, what they don't need, what makes sense. And just that to me is the fun part. It's the hard part, but I feel like I've done a lot of work on Bill that I can kind of, there it is. They're frustrated. Okay. This is a way around. So it's all about business, really. I mean, there's no divide between our personal life and our business life. Now, I'm not going to share in a business negotiation. I'm not going to share what I would share with, a friend of 30 years necessarily.
Of course.
But I'm going to go right to the edge of that because I want to be real and authentic, because I want to know how much more our business relationship can do for each other. Yes, money-wise, but more like connection-wise and, growing together.
It's such a good point, because deals that are rated as high trust between the two parties create an average of 35% more value.
Wow.
Right? 35%. Wow. Now, think about some of the deal sizes you do, and then 35% is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But think about this. So it's about 80 or 90% of negotiators wish to have high trust negotiations. However, very few of them actually bring signals of that trust into the negotiation room. Wow. So there's this kind of priming for danger and for, I don't want to get screwed, and all that. I don't want to be seen as weak. I don't want to be made a fool of, all of these sort of things. So of course they don't. If both sides are doing that, they're not going to find that trust. They're not going to find that rapport to build that trust. And so that value is immediately dropped. And so
amazing. That's an amazing statistic.
Think that down the line. It also means that your deals are far less robust because there's no personality there. There's no trust to find that extra value, all the hidden value that I talk about. You find that when you're open enough to actually bounce ideas around, but how you can meet each other's needs in more creative ways than just the obvious.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about,
That's
finding
powerful.
that value. But they can't do that because they don't have that trust, because they're not willing to be that little bit vulnerable. As I said, we're not talking about Oprah oversharing.
Right, exactly. This isn't Dr. Phil, but it's one person.
Dr. Phil, exactly.
I always want to be the one person taking that next step down into the revealing more about self. And I can do that by asking you a question like, how's your relationship, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll take that and go, oh yeah, mine is this. And, oh my God, I can't believe. And suddenly I'll take it down one more layer just to see if the person wants to go down there. And if they don't, I know how to, right? But if that person wants to talk about that topic of, family or, their dad died, and it's, still upsetting to them, boom, boom. Now we go down that next layer. So as you were talking, what does Dan Goleman say? Dan Goleman's the godfather of emotional intelligence, right? He wrote the book in 1995. He's like the risen one. What does he say about what percentage of your skill set, once you get, I think it's 10 years or 12 years in the business world, what does he say about emotional intelligence?
It is
What
the most important factor.
80% of the skills in your success are EQ based. How does one build one's EQ? By getting the left brain and the right brain to come together. To get the left brain and right brain, the physical action and exercise. These are my words. It's Travis Bradberry, and it's kind of taken Goldman's work and taken to a whole different level. The only way to increase EQ is to bring the left brain and right brain together. That's the physicalizing of increasing EQ. How does one do that? Meditation.
Wow.
Meditation, the biological 10 minutes of meditating is literally all the science for, don't take my word for it, follow the science, is the most powerful way to increase EQ. In fact, it's probably, I don't want to say it's the only way, but it's what the Hindus and the Buddhists, it's what these guys have been doing for not 1,000 years, not 2,000 years. By the way, they were all meditating 200,000 years ago around the fire pit, and being able to understand symbols and understand meaning of our lives is done through intuition. It's done through the quiet and the unseen. And but anyway, in terms of EQ, to me it's the whole ball of wax.
It's an amazing point because, I mean, most of us have heard a ton of the research that's been going on the last 20 years around meditation, mindful meditation and whatnot, and how, it lowers your blood pressure and it makes you more objective and you're less emotionally reactive, which sounds like you're more in control, but you're not colder. You're sort of bringing forth that better self more often. So fascinating that you're linking that to, and it's completely logical when you say it, to business performance, but also to intuition and to insight. That you're able to hear that quiet voice that's usually blocked out by all the chatter of the inner critic. And
exactly. Here's another powerful stat. So your heart sends 5,000 more signals, 5,000 times more signals to your brain than your brain sends to your heart. Your heart puts out, I think it's 60,000 times more biomagnetic energy than your brain. Your heart has 40,000 neurons that are exactly like brain neurons. Your heart thinks independently, it grows independently, understands independently. Your heart doesn't need your brain. Think of that. Your brain is responding to what's living here and all the neurons in your belly, your solar plexus. This is the gut feeling. This is the world of EQ. So what we're trying to do is send the information stored in here from Al's world up into the brain. So the brain goes, oh, that's how I respond to feminine kind, male kind, whatever it is. The challenge is when we bring this stuff up, there are going to be memories, sensations, and feelings that we just don't want to revisit.
Yeah, a lot of
that's a simple
uncomfortable
fact.
Stuff.
It's uncomfortable, and that's standing in the fire, right? We don't stand in the fire of our relationship with our boss. We don't stand in the fire of our relationship to that ornery client. It's hard, but it's not hard if you've stood in the fire at your cushion in your therapy of Bill's crap. If I understand Bill's crap, I guarantee you I'm going to have a better sense of Mr. Smith's crap. Right? Or that guy that cuts me off. I know exactly why he's frustrated. Like his sense of self is built on so it's really knowing self and standing in the fire of self.
It's bringing that empathy back in where, again, someone says, oh, screw you, buddy, and they're rude to you. Or as you said, whether they cut you off in a business deal or in that context, or whether it's in traffic or whatever, is that you can, again, take that arm's length, take a breath and realize the empathy. It's unlikely he is physically shouting at me, but who is he actually shouting at,
Exactly. He's shouting at his memory of his dad. He's shouting at something. He's shouting at old memories, but the old memories are invisible. So he's just going to point whatever's the most obvious.
Absolutely. Or else, as you said, he had a thing with the wife that set him off in the morning, and now you happen to be in the way and re-triggering the emotion that's already unpleasant and unpopular for
Absolutely.
So it can be totally different from you. You're not even triggering it. You're just in the way.
I'm just in the way. Yeah. And that often happens in all our relationships,
Absolutely. And it's that, as you said, that empathy. And one thing I do with my clients a lot is that idea of, and you're a counselor, so you're literally doing it, but is remaining in that kind of neutral space where you're neither aggressive nor are you defensive, but you're fully present, fully emotionally present. And it's amazing what happens when people are getting bolshy, getting aggressive, and they're getting, and you're there. You're neither attacking them nor are you trying to defend yourself. You just let it wash over you. You're still there for them, and you're engaging, and the amount of rapport that can build, as you said, that trust is incredible.
It really is. As you're talking, I'm just re-experiencing, remembering when heavy emotions pouring out from somebody else, kind of pouring our way. I just feel like I've trafficked so much in my own crap that I just see that that's literally electrons coming out that, and I just identify and say, you're right. And we always say your emotions, your reactions, Al, are 100% accurate. You know why? Because they're yours. They're 100% accurate. And there's one thing in the world we can control. What is the one thing in the world that we can control?
How we think, and then that dictates how we feel. Yeah.
How we feel. The only thing we can control is how we feel, aka how we respond to the world. That's the only thing. I can't control anything. So if I can't control all this stuff, why aren't I working on the one thing I can fully understand, which should help me out there? And so when that person's throwing that crap out, you're right. Mr. Smith, you are 100% right. How could I? You're totally right. We've screwed up here. We didn't process this trade right. Like we screwed up, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And I totally apologize. And blah, blah, blah. Now, no, that doesn't always work because there might be a bigger issue going on. But if I don't know where my place is in his stuff, aka if I don't know my place in my own stuff, that makes for a much different dialogue.
Absolutely. So if people are listening to this and they're thinking, okay, Bill, this is hitting some chords with me here. Maybe they've done a little bit of reflection. They're doing this, that, and the other. And they're going, you know what? Yeah, people say things to me, and sometimes I realize later, yeah, I think I overreacted there. So, and they hear what you're saying. They think, oh, wait, they were hitting buttons from patterns from long ago. What is something that they can do next? Where would you direct their attention? What should they do? What should they try? What should they?
Great question.
What action can they do to even, maybe it doesn't solve the problem, but at least puts them on a good path?
Perfect. And I have a really simple exercise, and that is the next time a strong emotion gets kicked up, boss, mom, sibling, spouse, whatever it is, right? What's that emotion? Anger. Perfect. Write it down. Anger. And then you're going to take that piece of paper and you're going to go someplace quiet. And you're going to start with, where in my body am I feeling anger? In my neck, in my chest. Great. Okay. We want the anger by ourselves in this process to wash through us, like totally embrace, dance with, scream, whatever you need to do. Feel all the anger you can possibly feel. I know that sounds counterintuitive.
But you lean right into it then. It's
called flooding. It's a classic therapeutic process. It's what the government has been studying for 120 years, post-World War I, is PTSD.
Right.
And really, all the research we've done and all the therapeutic process is reflective and correlated to the government's work on PTSD. How do you do it? You flood yourself with the very thing that's killing you, which is your emotions. So get that anger. Let yourself be flooded with it. Now, you do it in a quiet spot. You in a safe spot, if you need to scream and yell anger, where in the body, and then go try to find upstream where this kind of the first time you felt this anger and frustration. For me, I kind of know the beginning points. It's good to try to go upstream to the rill, to the thing that pool that started this flow of river of this emotion, anger, because anger is old. And so you feel it, you embrace it, you dance with it, and go find the source of it. It's like, oh gosh, that was fifth grade when that blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly, you have a better understanding of where it came from. You're just trying to understand the anger. You're not trying to get rid of it, because anger means you care. Like, you're not going to get rid of caring, and anger is a reflective piece of caring. And so there's many layers to the anger, but essentially means you're not going to get angry at something you don't care about. You care about your boss, you care about your job, all that stuff. You care, so you get really angry. So follow the trail up. Where's the roots? I don't know the roots. We'll stay with it. At some point, you're going to find the roots, that kind of core beginning of where anger really showed up in your life. And then the next layer, which is kind of a whole other process, is you take the 35-year-old and the fourth grader where the anger began, and you start dialoguing. The adult 35-year-old starts dialoguing on our inner world with that fourth grader or fifth grader, and you start just understanding the roots that started when you weren't able to process, you weren't able to kind of cut things off and express yourself, right? You can't do that in fourth grade because you're just a kid, wallowing in the world. But now you're an adult with the fourth grader's anger. You got two of them come together and process and kind of hand in hand go, okay, we understand the anger was then. I'm the adult now. We're going to be able to process through it in the outside world that you couldn't do before. And you basically bring, which is essentially EQ, you're bringing the left brain adult back to the right brain
right
child, right? For the first 12 years of your life, you're purely limbic. First 12 years of your life, you're purely limbic. You're purely right brain. 80% of what you pick up from 0 to 12 at home is nonverbal. You're not picking up what your dad says. You're picking up what your dad felt. You're not picking up what your mom says. You're picking up how your mom feels about him, about the world. And you stored all this stuff. You're pure limbic. So you're taking the adult rational self and you're bringing it back to the child limbic self. And now you have a united front. So the next time, if you do that enough, next time that boss triggers you like that, you're like, oh, there it is. That's the fourth grade self. Okay, I got it. I got this. We're good. And
are you reshaping the meaning of what happened back there?
You're processing it, you're reshaping it, and you're understanding it, because a Jung says you can't change anything until you accept it.
Right.
But accepting isn't like, I accept my anger, I'm good. No. Accepting it is being in it, going, oh, I had that anger because that teacher really pissed me off, and I was right to be pissed off. And the 35 goes, absolutely, you were right. You couldn't process it. I've got it now. We're going to do it together. You've accepted it. Now, this could take years. Trust me. I'm 25 years into this, and I'm still trying to figure it out. So I know it sounds great, but by accepting it, you start modifying it and responding differently. And that's really what we're trying to get at, Al, is just responding to our life and our world slightly differently. And people will pick up on it. So amazing. Anyway, don't get me started. Sorry.
I know, amazing. I mean, this was something that's come up recently, as I said, this idea of reparenting oneself.
Huge.
As in these little incidents, which even if they're fairly innocuous to anyone who is around, so not even, this is, trauma with a very small T, and I'm always wary to use that word because,
yes.
Trauma with a big T is
much...
is horrific stuff,
yeah.
And you feel even guilty using the same word. But I think we need like a trauma light type of
yes.
word,
Yeah.
Because even using the word, you feel wrong, Anyway,
it's triggered.
It is those incidents, though, that stick with you that, as you said, cause this emotional wound on a small scale that sticks with you, still there.
So as I look at all the books that I've read and blah, 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 I could get rid of all of those books and just have one. And it's called Homecoming by John Bradshaw. And that's the reparenting book. He wrote that in 90 or 91. And he completely reintroduced the therapeutic paradigm to reparenting oneself. And it's the most powerful work you can do, is that reparenting. It's exactly what you said. And I know there's more modern versions, but that book, you just read the first 30 pages, you put it down, you're like, oh my gosh, I am a child. I'm a child. And it's not a bad thing. That's and it's how all the even Christ says it. He says only the heart of the child, only children go to heaven. He doesn't mean only 8-year-olds go to heaven. He means only the heart, the opened adult heart, which reintroduces us to the child love and beauty and openness to the universe. That's heaven. And all the Native Americans, I've done Native American work, and I was shocked when the first thing the shaman did was, okay, we're going to go back to childhood. I'm like, okay, every single culture has been doing the same thing. Go back to childhood, figure it out, carry that relatus, carry that wisdom back to the 56-year-old, and you have a different lens on life. You have a different experience. It's not easy.
It's not easy. On that note, picking that middle period, because when we were talking before and you were looking at some stuff on my website, you said, oh, that question, what would you say to your 20 and 30-year-old self? That's a great question. And what I'm fascinated by is because this is sort of that middle ground, as you said, when you're not your, 8 to 6 to 14-year-old self, and you're not your, as you said, where the full limbic integration with your
Mm,
rational uh, prefrontal cortex, your rational thinking mind is fully, done yet.
yeah.
So what was it about that question that really resonated with you as sparking all sorts of thought?
I think because I've done so much work pre 15 of like that part of me, because I feel like so much is built then.
Right.
But when I saw that, what would you say to your 20 or 30-year-old? My 25-year-old would never listen to the 56-year-old. So I was kind of chuckling at the fact that my fourth grader would be much more receptive, where my 25-year-old, I was just hell bent for leather, right? And so even if like I came back with flowing robes and I could go back to whatever London in a trading room, or New York when my 25-year-old, like, that's really interesting. Like, what I would say to him was, just be prepared, listen a little bit more. You should probably slow down and take stock of all these deep emotions, because they're going to come back up. And there's nothing you can do now necessarily, but just know it's coming. And
And what would your 25-year-old self respond to that? Screw you, old man. Right, yeah.
pretty much say, hey, that's really good insight, but I'm really busy and I appreciate it. I'm trying to learn what the world's all about.
Okay, that's the polite response. Okay, good.
That's the polite response,
Right.
exactly. And I think my 32-year-old, so I was 32 when I first sat and meditated at one time. I think he would have been unbelievably much more receptive. So probably only 5, 6, 7 years past 25-year-old, I would have
Okay.
been really receptive and open, because my inner world was really coming up. And it was such a shock to see that we had all this stuff, or I had all this stuff inside. So my 30-year-old would have been much more receptive. And you asked a great question. It really gets me thinking that it would have been interesting to have that dialogue and be able to share some insights, but it really wouldn't have changed the trajectory, because I do realize life has to flow and life really is the teacher. And I only get insights when I'm ready for them. And I don't think I was ready for anything more at 32 than what I actually got. And even if the 56-year-old sat with myself at 32 at Draycott Place in Sloane Square today, the 32 would be like, that's great. Like, but what do I do with that?
You're not ready for that.
I'm not ready. I
Yeah.
couldn't understand it. I
You
didn't have the
can't
capacity.
fully process what you would say.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. And so
Exactly.
what that has taught me to do is just be present with those younger parts of me. I can't tell you how many times, Al, I'll go back to my bedroom in the 70s, and I'll just spend time with my 14-year-old. We'll be hanging out, we'll be listening to music, and my 8-year-old will be there, just so I can retune in to those younger sensibilities in me. I can see the blue carpet on the floor. I've got the green and white wallpaper. Like, I can see the whole thing. I got my Sony music machine that I got it when I'm 1976, whatever. And just being in that space makes me feel connected. What am I connected to? My emotions, my sensibilities. Like, how powerful were you at 8 years old? Super powerful. What did you dream of? What did you want? What did you didn't want? What were you afraid of? What did you love? Who are your heroes? That's all living inside of you today, right now. And so when you connect with that power and that unabridged appreciation that we had at 10 years old, that our adult world kind of gets calloused over, and we're like, oh, life's hard and politics suck and all this stuff.
Right.
When I go back and tune into those moments, it's really there's a sweetness.
It's so funny you mentioned it, because the first thought that came to mind at 8 years old is sitting on Saturday afternoon watching the amazingly boring football results being read out really slowly. I'm going, come on! And eventually then the theme tune would come on, the A team, and it was like it was the highlight of my week at 8 years old.
I love it. Right. So just tuning into him, it's wild what comes up. I know it sounds so crazy, new agey, tuning into the younger parts, but I'm telling you, it's fascinating stuff.
Well, it is, but I mean, it can be new agey, but I mean, it makes a lot of logical sense as to going back to where you literally came from. Like the things you're interested in, what mattered, is it what didn't matter, what views you had on certain things,
Yeah.
almost in an emotional view, before you got maybe super self-conscious again as a teenager and all that sort of stuff, kicks in.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. It's the equivalent of doing a personal history. They say people who forget history or ignore history are doomed to repeat it.
Totally.
Well, there you go, right?
Bingo.
I just thought of that now, is that it's exactly true of ourselves.
Exactly. Joseph Campbell, really talk about the grandfather of wisdom. You got Goldman, you got Young, Robert Monroe, Joseph Conrad, incredible. He basically studied every single culture since the beginning of time and saw these unifying forces. And he said every single culture had these ceremonies of participation. In other words, to merge and to understand nature, because we are nature. And so when you were talking, I get this, it reminded me of what Campbell studied year after year. People got to read Joseph Campbell. Just Google him. Participation means understanding. And what you're saying is, go back to the 8-year-old. You're going to participate in that flow of who you were then, which will expand your participation of your life now, which expands your participation with everything around you. And really, if you kind of sum it up, is knowing oneself is really knowing the stream, like you said, the history that you come from, and that stream still flowing through us, whether we believe it or not. And we can tune into that stream, participate with our life experience so far, and then help it kind of enrich and thicken and expand in our daily life, in our adult world. And the problem is we get so rationalized and we get so logic seeking that we forget all this massive world inside of us. And if we can combine the two with our EQ, we're just going to have a different experience of our business world, of our personal world. It's participating with self means I'm going to want to participate with your world. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to know what your stream is. I want to know who you were at 10 years old. You'd be like, well, that wasn't important. But yeah, it's fun. It's your history. I'm a history addict. I want to know people's. I'll have 10-minute conversations with strangers. My girls are like, Dad, what's your problem? Why do you ask people those questions? Because I'm fascinated with the human experience. But and my curiosity.
I'll bet you've heard this, Bill, because I used to hear this, where someone would say, I've known that guy for 2 years and you've known him for an hour.
Yeah.
And I've learned stuff about him that I never knew. And I see him in a whole different light now. Several people said it to me over many 100%, years. 100%. And I would imagine you have the exact same thing, right?
I've cold called people over the phone and they've said in 15 minutes, I've never said that to another person. And again, am I proud of that? Absolutely. I'd be silly not to be proud of it. But really what I'm doing is people want to tell their story. What is the great sales guy, what's your favorite word in the entire universe? Al, 2 words, Al McBride. It's your favorite word, right? Whether we know it or not, our favorite word on the planet, this is science, our favorite word is our name. Even though we like, so we want to, it's Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie says, so that's why he always says when you're in a negotiation, you don't just say, you say Al over and over and over again, because that's the word, hey, Bill, hey, Bill. Hey, Bill. So the point is knowing, understanding that, we just knowing oneself, I think is it all comes down to that.
It does.
It all comes down to that.
But as I said, it is knowing oneself, but it's being interested in the story of other. And often when people are too caught up with the whirlwind, the mulch of their own shit, for want of a better word, that they forget or they're just closed off to what other people are going through or where other people are coming from, all of that stuff. Whereas
it is so funny,
when you're a bit more balanced with your own stuff, then you go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's curious. I said something again to you last time we were chatting, and you said, oh, that's a great point. I just said something that somebody said to me years ago, which is don't get mad, get curious, or don't get sad, get curious. When people are aggressive or they're a bit down or whatever. And it's that curiosity, isn't it? That you're out of your own shit enough to actually be curious about what this other person, this other human being who happens to be in front of you for a brief period of time is actually about.
It's amazing. It really is, being curious. And so, how many times have you had a conversation with somebody where I've had 45-minute conversations where I've said probably 4 sentences. I just ask a question and then they just go off. And then we're hanging up going, Bill, that was the best conversation. You're such a nice guy. They wouldn't know me from Adam. If I hung up and called again, they wouldn't know, because they did all the talking, because people want to tell their story. Every single human being, you want to tell me your story. Right. The reason why, that's what you want. We want to tell who we are, because that's how we identify, am I really in the universe right now? Well, how do I know? I could talk to myself, but if I talk to, like, how does a tree know it's a tree? I think it looks at another tree going, oh, I must be a tree. Like, how does Al know he's Al?
Isn't it ironic,
Sharing.
though, that by spending more time alone, you're more effective actually having those conversations rather than just having light conversations all the time, neither going deeper with people nor spending the time
You
alone,
nailed it. You
you
nailed
know?
it. You nailed it. The more time you spend, the return on energy, the ROE on time spent by yourself, 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, with your back straight, you want your spine straight, with your eyes closed, just listening to your heart, letting your heart open up. 15 minutes a day will change your life forever. And I know that sounds corny, and I know, again, new agey, but
Not at all.
what's that going to show me? My heart's going to send me signals, and it's going to open up, and it's going to tell me where I'm at today in this moment. When I wake
Right
up, I
now.
sit pretty much every single day, and I try to do half an hour. Some days it's 0, sometimes it's 45 minutes. But my day is different because I'm aware of, oh, this is the energy's going well. The energy's a little stuck from last night, whatever it might be. Doesn't matter. I don't judge what's coming up. I try to understand it, and now I apply it. When we hang up, I'm going to apply it to the 15 phone calls I got to make, where I'm at, good, bad, or indifferent. And then, so I do the silent work, which helps my active work. I do the
Right.
deep, long hours of of what people would look at as of doing nothing. Whereas for me, it's girding me and it's opening me to the high activity that I need to do to be productive.
Just a
That's
question on the when before, as you said, you make some of those calls or important meeting or whatever, you check in. What am I at right now today? Oh, okay. There's a bit of this popping up, or a bit of that, and I presume you then go into acceptance before you can. But do you just accept and then go into the meeting, or do you actually accept and then go, how do I want to feel, and then actually start doing that,
great
changing
question.
the trajectory?
Great question. If I feel if I can change it with insider knowledge or learning something about the other person, or just tweaking my sense of where I'm at right now, feeling less than, feeling big and bold, whatever it might be, I try to do it. But I it, I realize that consciously with my egoic right left brain rational self can have a little bit of a tweak. But if I'm in that flow, I just try to manage it. I just try
Okay.
to harness it and restrain it in whatever way I need to do in order to be super productive. And I just think listening, I think net, it makes me a really good listener. And I'm not listening to the words, I'm listening to what's behind the words. I'm trying to listen to, as you do, the intent behind what that person's saying. Are they saying no because they don't feel like saying yes? Are they saying no because they truly know what the fart I'm doing and what we're trying to do? And if both is the case, then that's fine. But if it's no, just because no is easier, I look at myself and go, I do the same thing. And I try to use that. Oh, okay. I know where you're at. I'm going to keep probing. I'll keep trying, and then I'll just let it go. But I can't tweak it that much. I'm not that good at it.
Fascinating. Yeah, it's just as always, you're sparking different thoughts the whole time. Oddly, the first thought that came to mind was that idea that, if you're particularly stressed, nervous, it's a lot more difficult to get to calm than to relabel and maneuver that feeling of intensity to, you're not nervous, you're excited. Your body is actually going, this is important.
That's
So it's
it.
very difficult to get to calm. It's much easier to go, oh no, this is exciting. What's exciting about this? And then you go, oh yeah, this is exciting, and this opportunity is exciting. And that's why I'm having this react. Oh, okay, great. So
No,
from being kind of, as you say, feeling less than, feeling maybe too vulnerable, to being, no, this is great. This could be great. There's great stuff here. That's why I'm kind of that kind of jittery, slightness. It's that idea of not trying to actually compress something. It's
yeah,
running with it, as you said, as you rightly say, flowing with it. Yeah,
yeah.
amazing
It's
stuff.
funny. That came up yesterday for me. It was that big discussion with those two very wealthy folk. And I'm just in the middle, kind of putting those two people together. Before the call, I was nervous. I'm thinking, God, I don't normally get nervous. And I think because of the size of the kind of the bank accounts of both guys, I just wanted to go. I just wanted to go well. I didn't want to screw it up. And as the call started, I just dropped in checking in. and I just kind of did what I normally did. So to your point, I couldn't undo the nervousness, which was definitely excitement, but it was, like I might be more less than I thought. And I didn't try to change it. I just quickly made a comment. We got a little bit of dialogue going, and I was able to basically let them roll and mute, and the thing, it went fine. But I caught myself. I'm like, wow, I don't normally get that nervous, but there were some big cats on the line. So like you said, there was nothing I could do. I just had to be with it and understand it, and see where it went from there.
So there's an acceptance that, okay, that's how it is. That's all right.
Yep.
And often when you accept it, it takes a lot of the actual.
It is, yeah.
It lets some of the steam out,
Yeah.
lets the pressure off.
The hook comes out, right? Because there was a desire. All our emotions are based on the desire. There was a desire to make that deal work. Well, there was nothing I could do to make that deal work except put those two bodies together. And by the end, I asked some really good questions. I thought were good questions because it wasn't going. They weren't meeting, which is all fine. They weren't meeting on terms. And I got super clear on what would need to happen in order for those terms to happen. So I was able to at least, understand, see through my stuff and just get to the bottom line, which is really what we're trying to do in business. And we can get to the bottom line, for me, a lot quicker, knowing that I'm just going to do whatever I can do in my fullest in that moment.
Fantastic stuff. That's a beautiful, natural point to hit the pause button until our next conversation, Bill.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic. Thank you so much for
I love it. I could keep
coming
going.
on the show.
As my wife says, Bill's incapable of small talk. Like I could just keep talking on and on.
You could have worse attributions.
Oh, I think I do, but
you must be great at barbecues, though.
Oh my God! Don't put a couple light beers in me.
Just ask about sports, okay? Exactly. Let's just keep the sports, all right?
Exactly. My girl's like, Dad, why do you care about the person serving, the food at the restaurant? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just curious. And here's the funny thing, and we'll end with this. My girls have always been mortified. I got 3 girls, incredible women. They was always embarrassed. Like, Dad, you ask so many questions. Now I find they're starting to ask questions.
You see.
And they're doing it because it's fun, and you never know what comes out of it. It's amazing. People want to be nice to each other in the end. And I'm not being nice to be nice. I'm being nice because I'm curious. Right? And then they're like, oh, we got this special, whatever. Like, it's fun. You got to, life can be so heavy. If you're not having fun with other people, then it just gets heavier.
That's it. As Rasputin supposedly said, what's life without a bit of fun?
Did he really?
I don't know. I heard it somewhere. It's one of those things where you hope it's true. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it is or not, but you think, he
was a character, that man. Wow. Crazy.
What's life without a bit of fun, Bill? Absolutely. Yeah. Fantastic having you on the show. Thank you so much for a fantastic interview.
Take care. Thanks again.